SwimSwam podcast coming at you. I'm host Garrett McCaffrey. Our guest today, one of the best club and high school coaches in the country, Dan Flack of Baylor School. Dan joins us from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Dan, thank you so much for making the time.
Happy to be here. Good to see you.
You guys are just coming off of your state championships. Is that the high school state championships, or is that like kind of the state club championships?
High school state championship. It was an interesting year.
Yeah. How did it go?
Well, first of all, it went. So that was awesome because for a while there, it didn't look like it was going to happen. We swam great. We had a great meet. We won the girls, boys. Boys was very satisfying because we weren't really supposed to win. We swam very well, and it was a unique situation. It was kind of it was done virtually. It was chopped up into 4 different sites to accommodate the different parts of our state. Even one site was actually in Mississippi. It wasn't even in Tennessee. To get the facilities that we could accommodate everybody with the number of constrictions that were doled out at each place.
Yeah. Did you guys come together for a championship, or even that final session was timed final for comparative virtual championship?
It was strictly time final and four different sites.
Like you said, though, at least it went.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
I kind of want to dive into a lot of it, but I know that coaches across the country are interested to hear how high school season went, if it went, and those things. And you've got a unique perspective that I'd like to spend a lot of this time kind of diving into as a high school and club coach, and a coach who's so accomplished at that level. I mean, you're a 8-time national team coach. You've been, named head coach of a bunch of the junior teams that have traveled across the world. And you've coached. It's unique because I don't think there's any coach with the credentials that you bring to the table and the success that hasn't spent a lot of time coaching college. And I don't have any problem with that, but I guess my first question is, what has kept you, fulfilled and excited to come back coaching high school age kids for this long now, over 2 decades?
It's funny. I was very fortunate at the beginning of my coaching career, being in some great stops along the way: North Carolina, Brown University with Matt Kredich, University of Georgia, part of a national championship staff. And at every stop along the way, I got to coach a group with the college program, and then be either the head coach or the senior coach of the club team that ran out of that. So I got a lot of education on the sport and got to see, like at the University of Georgia, I was in there with obviously Jack. I shared an office with Carol Capitani and Whitney Heights. Steve Boltman was on the staff, of course, the great Harvey Humphreys. It was a real wonderful experience, especially at Georgia, because they're all wonderful, acclaimed coaches, but they're very different people. And inevitably in a college situation, stuff happens, stuff comes up. And I got to see some of the best minds in the sport, figure out the answer to the problem or the issue or the scheduling situation or whatever it may be. So I was very fortunate in that realm. I was very fortunate to grow up swimming for Dick Schulberg growing up at Germantown Academy, a top prep school. So I kind of feel like all the different experiences I've had kind of led me to this place where everything and every component of the sport that I love and want to be a part of, I have it here, which is really cool. It keeps me busy, keeps me thinking.
What are those components? What are the things that you need I guess it's obviously not age necessarily. What are the
Right.
things that make Baylor a one-stop, everything you could ask for from a coaching standpoint?
Well, I always joke and say, especially relative to the high school program, we run it like a college program with younger people. A component of our program, about 25% of it lives here, are boarding students. The rest are local kids. Like, I love dual meets. I love writing lineups. I love figuring out that puzzle, right? I love that. I get that. You don't get that in club swimming, right? I get that here. It was funny just with our last meet, especially in the boys' events. I did some deep dives on the competition and where we could maximize our points, and going through that process had some epiphanies of, oh, such and such should not swim this event. They should swim this event, that kind of stuff. I love that. The club component, we still go to nationals, junior nationals. We're going to be going to Olympic trials. It gives me that club outlet to prepare kids, and we can do it year round. We've got a beautiful 50-meter pool here. We can go yards, we can go meters. We train both. And through that, I've been fortunate, like you said, to coach several United States teams, and that's been awesome, because that's my favorite thing, actually, is using the sport of swimming to see the world, and get exposed to, again, different ways of doing things. I'll never forget my first World Junior Championships in 2011 in Lima, Peru. That was a wild scene. They're still, I remember telling Chase Kalish, hey guys, you might want to move over as we're doing our stretch, because they're still soldering the scoreboard up, a day and a half, 2 days before the meet. And you get there and you got the Russian team likes to do it one way, and the Chinese do it another way, and the Japanese, everybody's doing it their own way. And it's quite it was quite wild to me. I really enjoyed that. So those are the components that, it kind of touches the bases of all those things. There's a real, with high school, I had a parent tell me this meet, and sometimes, I've been doing this a while now, so I forget it, but her son did really well at our meet, and she said to me, I think this is the first time where he really got exposure to swimming for the team. And, anybody who's done college swimming, that's everything in college swimming. It's swimming for your squad, swimming for your team. Whereas there's that in club swimming, but it's not the same. It's really just not the same usually.
Yeah. I want to kind of take a quick step backwards to those college days, because I did know about the time with Georgia, and I had, as you said it, remembered that, you got to coach with Credit at Richmond as well. When you
Brown.
Sorry, Brown. I apologize. But
okay.
When you go back to that staff at Georgia, can you give me one good story of Jack or the staff and like all of those personalities kind of being together at the same time? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I mean, it's tough to see that scene and not like hear a Jack story, or maybe it's a set or a practice or a pep talk or any good story from that year at Georgia. National champion.
I can tell you two.
Yes.
First, when I was at the facility, the beautiful facility that they have there, it still looks like $1 million. Still holds its own with any facility in the country. At the Ramsey Center, it was brand new, and we were hosting NC2As there. So
in 2000,
sorry,
this year 2000, 2001.
Yeah, back then. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're the shiny new toy, right? So, and we've got a good team, and everybody, and I mean everybody, wanted to come swim us. Let's get some swims in the pool before NC2As, etc. everybody was very fired up to come swim us, you name it. So at one point, we're in this big staff meeting. Again, I'm just, I'm a sponge at this point. I was in an awesome spot because Jack had actually coached me back in my Germantown days when he would come and be an assistant for Mr. Schulberg. Jack took me to my very first junior nationals out in Mission Viejo in the early 80s. So we're both Philly guys. We love to talk, we could talk the Phillies and the Eagles and all that stuff. So I was always in a real good spot with Jack. And I really, in those meetings, tried to, again, be a sponge and just listen. So I didn't perk up a whole lot. But at one point, we've got, like, now I'm embellishing, but it seemed like 65 dual meets, right? Because everybody and their brother literally is wanting to come racist. And all the coaches have great relationships with all these teams, so they'd love to see their friends in the coaching community, etc. And I finally, we're up to a lot of dual meets. And I finally was like, I don't mean being the jerk here, but don't we have to train at some point? And everybody kind of stopped and looked, and they were like, "You're right." And immediately, a couple of the teams started getting scratched off the list, and we whittled it down to a more manageable schedule.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. And the other story that was just so eye-opening to me, it made it clear to me why I never wanted to be a college head coach. Oh, geez. Sorry about that. Why I did not want to be a college head coach was it seemed like Jack did an awful lot of stuff. That seemed like he did. He did an awful lot of stuff outside of the pool. And there was many days where he'd come in and be like, "Danny, come here." All right. And Jack always coached the main group. He's like, "You've got these guys today. Here's the practice, because I've got to do this, that, or the other thing." It was an Olympic year. That year was 2000. And we were in a situation where, especially with the girls, like, 3, sometimes 4 of the finalists that were probably going to be in the final heat at trials were in our pool training together, which made it tough. He had to be as much a psychiatrist some days as a coach. And he pulled me aside and he said, "Just remember, if you're going to be great at this, people look from the outside and say, 'Man, you've got it made.'" And he's like, "It's never easy." And I always remember that because he's right. It is never easy in those situations.
You've had experience at every level of the sport. And like I said, for the last 15 years at Baylor, and then a little bit before that, I think at the club level as well. And I'm a club coach now too, not anywhere close to your level. And so I ask a lot of questions about college, but I don't want to seem like I'm pushing any coaches towards college, although there is a weird career path that is constantly pushing you in that direction for some reason. That's the question. It's like, when you're first dating a girl, when are you going to get married? You get married, when are you going to have a kid? When you're a club coach, it's like, "Hey, could you see yourself coaching college?" And that they're not asking Dave and Eddie, "Hey, could you see yourself coaching clubs?" So
Sure.
There's kind of a weird, for better or for worse, built-in societal pressure pushing coaches towards college. I, like you, see some of the benefits in this club level where you can get the fulfillment and the challenges. And I've found that you have to kind of let go of a expectation of level of performance, or else you're going to be chasing that forever. And obviously that stuff comes, you can see the accolades behind you, Dan. I mean, you've done everything from NAG record holders to, team champions to all that stuff. But at some point, did you have to kind of check your ego a little bit and have a realization? Because I'm sure that there's been a young college coach who doesn't really realize how great you are and comes up and just kind of big times you or something. We've all had it, those punk college young coaches who've never even coached club before, who like think because they've got that, you know, team logo that they are a better coach because they're at that collegiate level. Have you had to, how, I guess, have you approached that pressure and that, what I have to assume is kind of an ego check in some ways?
Yes. It's funny you bring that up. So it actually happened on SwimSwam. I could tell kind of a story along those lines. So I'm a graduate of the University of North Carolina. A lot of people apparently didn't realize that I coached there for a while.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's ancient history, God. But so, being a graduate of Carolina, when the job came open, you know, there's all the speculation and the comments and stuff. And somebody commented, well, Flack, he's good at the high school level, but he's not ready for the college level, etc. And I chuckled to myself. I was like, well, I coached way more at the school, you know, conference champions. Like, I coached a bunch of them back in the day. So no, I found that very humorous. But here's what I'll say. Everybody's got to do what suits them. This is the shoe that fits. I'm 56. A lot of people don't think I'm that old. And I consider myself remarkably young at heart, certainly. My hairline doesn't necessarily agree as much, but 56-year-old, you know. This group of kids keeps me young because in my mind, when I was 12, I was 25, and I still think I'm 56, and I think I'm 25. So coaching this level, I'm extremely comfortable with it. And also, it's the other thing. You can have such an impact on these kids' lives at this point. A lot of teaching going on. It's funny. I used to live on campus here, and I was amazed how much coaching I could get done in the dining hall during dinner. Now, the kids didn't realize it, and a lot of times I didn't realize it. But upon further review, we got a lot. You know, I got a lot of communication outside of the pool and relationship building with the kids, just sitting around the dinner table. So to the point where I realized, I during COVID, I thought about a lot of stuff. Like, okay, when we have this opportunity to go back, after morning practice, now I cruise up to the dining hall and eat breakfast with the kids, and chit chat with them. And I find I get a lot of relationship building done during that time. Because once they get here to the pool, it's kind of go. We're, right after school, and we've got the club team that comes in afterwards. So we've got our fixed set of time, and we got work to do, right? So, but I really enjoy working with this level of kid, this age of child. And the other thing that's so unique and so cool about Baylor, we're not just dealing with kids. About 70 to 75% of the team is from locally here from Chattanooga, but the rest, all over the world. We literally have kids from all over the world on our team over the years. I'm super proud of, in the front of the building, we've got all the flags representing all the different countries we've had kids come from. And then we've got on the other side all the flags where we've had kids compete. So that's a unique situation that's really, really cool. In many ways, I think I have a cooler gig than most college programs.
I completely agree. And it's right in line with what you said from the very beginning is one of your biggest values in the sport, and that's to see the world. And you're bringing the
Yep.
world to you in a lot of ways.
Correct.
And, using your expertise as an avenue for that. And I think that that's wonderful to A, have the awareness, and B, then you're allowed to, fill in all those other pieces of, productivity and all those pieces around. At what point, and this is from a coach who can't go to breakfast with them because they're not all on the same campus. I'm just wondering,
Sure.
at what point does that we got work to do give way to we got relationships to build if you get that chance at practice in the water, or dry land is a chance where their head isn't in the water very much. I guess I want you to talk a little bit more about the relationship and the importance compared to the work, which we all know works.
Yep. Being on campus with them, you get those opportunities that your average club coach just doesn't have that opportunity. I was a dorm parent as well, so some of these kids, there was about a 5-year stretch where the school started funneling. I actually didn't want them to funnel the kids into my dorm, but for about a 4 or 5 year stretch there, a lot of the swimmers were in my dorm. So I would easily say to them, look, when we're at the pool, I'm coach. But here, when we're in the dorm, I'm your dorm parent, and with the parent being the operative word, and that, my apartment's open. You can always come in here and watch Sports Center, snag a slice of pizza if we got extra, or whatever the case may be. But I'm not going to talk swimming with you here. We're going to talk everything in your life, but and that was really helpful that they could come in and chit chat. My son was a little guy then. I'd be like, hey, you want to score points with coach? Take him out and get him tired. Run him around. Throw the ball with him, because he was all, what he still is, but when he was a little guy, he was all boy. Whatever season it was, he wanted to play that sport. So I'm like, go shoot hoops with him, go throw the football with him, whatever. You'll get big points with me.
It kind of laid a foundation for relationship building, but also for you to be able to kind of set boundaries, because eventually that little boy grew up, and he's not all the way grown up, but he is a young man now who swims big boy times like 4:26 in the 500. So at some point that transitioned into swimming. And was that ever something that you thought about when he was that little kid picking through all the different sports? How did it kind of come to swimming? And then the bigger question, how do you coach and be dad? And like I said, it sounds like you kind of had some practice laying that foundation, but I guess I just kind of want to know how that whole path came to where it's at now, where your son's working out with you.
Can we pause this for a second? Let me plug in my battery here.
Yeah, no problem. It's a perfect place, because you just plug back in and answer the question. They can edit that together, or maybe not edit it together, and now this will just stay as part of the podcast. And in that case, we appreciate you listening. It'll be worth it.
So, all right, I'm ready now.
Let's do it. 3, 2, 1, go.
That didn't quite work out. Technology's never been one of my strong suits. It's a funny the way it evolved. He was a very, just by nature of the business. When he was a little guy, I was a single parent with him for a big chunk of it. So he was kind of a pool rat. He was always down. He would take the water polo ball and shoot hoops and have these imaginary games into the pull-up bars that we have on the side of our wall. And every once in a while I'd be like, hey, you winning or losing? He's like, well, we're down, but we're all right. We're going to be okay. And I was like, go get him, Tiger. But so he was always around the pool and very observant. he used to ask me all the time, Dad, who are the good boys and who are the bad boys? And I'm like, well, you know, this one is a really good kid, obeys the rules and da-da-da. And this one, yeah, we still got some work to do. So it allowed him to be extremely independent. You know, he grew up on this campus. It's a very safe place. We never locked our doors. And it also allowed me to put a little bit more responsibility on Sam when he was a little guy. I was like, okay, you know, I can get you to Little League, no problem, but you've got to feed the dog and do your homework and go to the dining hall and eat dinner and be down here by this time. And if you do that, we'll leave and you'll be, because he never likes to be late for anything. So we'll be there with no problem. So that would, but he, like I said, he was really into the ball sports, and he swam as a little kid. I just thought it was funny. I really thought the whole circle of life was funny. I used to tell people all the time, because my daughter, she's graduating here. She's done great. She's going to Texas next year. We're super proud of her. And I used to say when they were little kids that Julia, my daughter, had a ton of my mom in her, and Sam, my son, had a ton of me. So whenever I had a conversation with them, I had a good idea which way it was going to go, the way they carried themselves and thought, etc. So the whole experience of him growing up on campus, I think he went as a Baylor football player like 3 years in a row for Halloween. I had the football coach get him like the real jersey and real whole thing. I mean, just cool stuff like that. But he played all the ball sports, and I always thought he was pretty good at a lot of them, you know. And I never thought he would be a swimmer. We did summer league. I thought it was hilarious. I remember the first time he was 6. And it was the championship meet, and he was going to do the 100 IM. And I said, all right, Sam, I got to do this. Okay. What's the order of the strokes? And he's like, Dad, I know the order of the strokes. I'm like, all right, you're good. Go have fun. You know, I was the dad always bringing Dunkin' Donuts, you know, to the summer league meets and yeah, everything you probably wouldn't want a parent doing later on. I was like, yeah, let's go. Just go have fun. You know, that was the whole point of it. But eventually, he played football like his first year. He could hear. I think he got his brains beat in because he was a lineman. And he's like, maybe this isn't as glamorous as I think it is. And he kept on swimming, and he stuck with it. Our middle school coaches, Coach Lauren, Coach Brian, did an awesome job with him, mixing, keeping it fun, but slowly but surely teaching him the sport. And eventually he kind of came to me and said, hey, I want to swim. I was like, okay, you sure? You know? But I think the best thing I've always done with him, I know the best thing that I've always done with him is this. I've made it very clear. You know, there's dad and then there's coach. And if we're at a swim meet, and I still say this to him to this day, do you want dad to tell you how you did, or do you want coach to tell you how you did? And to his credit, he is very clear on who he wants. And you know, coach tells him, well, this is good. And, you know, he's made really nice progress in the 500. But I was like, you know, you watch Trey Freeman race a lot, because Trey would always, one of our great swimmers here, Trey was not the most aggressive going out in a race. And I'd always say he did hero ball. He would come home like a maniac at the end. And this year at our December shave meet, I pulled Sam aside and I was like, you know, he went a really good 500, came from behind, won the race. And I said, you know, that's good, but those laps in the beginning, they count too, you know? And if it's a meet where it's, you know, he wants me to be dad, all I care about is where are we eating afterwards? You know, where are we eating? He loves Wendy's. I'm like, we going to Wendy's? He's like, yeah, we're going to Wendy's. So we the two of us each have done a real good job of that separation, I think, and we keep it fun. One of the best compliments I got, and two of our seniors told me this at different times this year. They laughed, like, Coach Flack, you'd never know Sam was your son. And I'm like, well, then I must be doing something okay, But I am super proud of his accomplishments. He works hard. He's always there, and by his choice, he's always ready for morning practice before I am. And he gets the jokes. We work hard, but we try and have a lot of fun with it. So he gets the jokes too, and he's got a great little crew of kids, and that's the other cool thing for me. Like, most of the boys, the local boys on our team, they've been over for sleepovers. They've been over for birthday parties or whatever before. So, they've seen me in that whole dad mode. We have a lot of fun, give each other a lot of grief about sports. They're all into their, most of them are into sports, and we just have a good time with it.
Are you able to, and I guess my original question is, has coaching your son helped you or changed you as a coach at all? But I guess the more direct version of that is, so are those guys who have been over for, the sleepovers and the birthday parties and stuff, are they able to pick Coach Dan or, Sam's dad, Dan, to kind of talk to? Are you able to, because you have such a close relationship with those kids, kind of compartmentalize and go from one relationship to another with them as well?
Yes, it actually works out really good, because I turn off Coach Dan real quick as soon as practice is done.
Yeah.
And go to again, talking smack to him and keeping that vibe going. Now they're in high school and stuff, and I may be dumb, I'm not stupid. Some of them might notice, hey, I notice you're kind of like, you like this one, this girl, you're kind of starting to like her a little bit, aren't you? Give them grief about that. But now we have a lot of fun about it. That's why, on one side, this year's been so difficult and challenging because of all the COVID stuff. But on the other side, it's been a piece of cake. Because they know not to take me too seriously. It'll be clear when I'm to be taken serious, but the rest of the time, we try not to take each other too seriously.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you still have that ability to intimidate them too. When you need to kind of get something extra out of them, there's still that ability to reach in and be able to push them and push the buttons the way that you've been able to do with so many athletes over your years.
Well, people tell me that I can be a little intimidating at times, especially when the Philadelphia, even though I'm in my 50s, growing up in Philadelphia, chip on my shoulder is alive and well, especially when I'm coaching. So yeah, I can get their attention. That's not a problem.
But isn't that somewhat a requirement to really lead? It's a coach's stereotype in some ways, but it is that ability to, command attention and intimidate to a certain, don't you think that's kind of the it factor, maybe in some ways?
I think just like, I talk about having 5 gears in every race, in my mind, we're teaching you 5 different gears of swimming, because in just about every race, you're going to have to use those gears at some point. It may be only for 2 or 3 seconds, or it may be for 80% of the swim, but you're going to have to use those different gears. It's no different on the communication and emotional side, in that you got to know when to crack the whip, when to ease off, when to just, it's clear Johnny or Sally's having a bad day, just pull them out and be like, how about we try again tomorrow? Just whatever's going on, go home, take a deep breath, have a good meal, get a good night's sleep, and we'll live to fight another day tomorrow. I think you have to have that that at every level. I do make a point. If the kids come into my office for some reason when they think they're in trouble, for whatever, we got to deal with. And as they round the corner out of my office, I've been doing this for 15 years here. I say the same thing. Now that wasn't so bad. Now it wasn't, and that letting them know that, hey, things might be a little rocky. Things might be a little rough right now, but the sun's going to come up tomorrow and you're going to get through this, whatever this may be.
You kind of alluded to it, but are there telltale signs when it's the right time to push for mental toughness and when it's the right time to pull back for mental toughness?
Oh, yeah. I think 25, 30 years ago, I didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I very much know what they are now. And again, it's the uniqueness of the situation in that I see them on campus. I see them in the lunchroom. I interact with them outside of the pool. And it's funny. It's like an old school neighborhood in that, whereas this is a big, beautiful campus, in reality, it's a little place. And there's lots of, I know a lot of people here, there's a lot of eyes out there. And I got lots of, little birds telling me, hey, just so such and such just failed a test, or such and such just broke up with their boyfriend, or the flip side, hey, don't say anything, but such and such is getting a big honor in assembly today, or whatever. That certainly helps as well. Certainly helps as well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the mental dive. If we could get into maybe some details for, some other pieces of it.
Sure.
When you're approaching the physical side, can we talk about like a typical training cycle, I guess would be an okay place to start, like how you look at dividing up your weekly work, or whether that's
sure.
a 3-day, 6-day, whatever. I think that would kind of be a cool place for people to have a foundational understanding of how you approach
sure.
training.
So our basic schedule with our best top level kids, it's either 2 or 3 mornings a week, and this is during the school year, 6 to 7:30 in the morning, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes I've really bought into the notion of more sleep, especially with the adolescents. Sometimes is better than throwing in an extra practice. So as we get closer to the big meet, I happily throw in, I'll take away Wednesday morning so they get that kind of 3 days of sleep rest, and start to have them come in a little later, like 6:30. That's the traditional morning practices that we do. Our schedule in the afternoon is, in general, 3:50 to between 5:50 and 6:15, depending on the day and the time of year and who they are. We let them out a little early on Friday because, I don't know, it's Friday. Why not? So we usually whack about a half hour off of that. And then our Saturday mornings are usually 7:30 till whenever we're done. Saturdays, we try and empty the tank. So that's the basic scheduling framework. Again, the COVID stuff made it really hard, but it also made me think a lot more. So I really like what we did this year. In that, I like to experiment with a lot of stuff, but I felt it really important to get the fluff out this year, and stick to what I know works. And it's also the way I train a group is the function of the talent in it. I always kind of joke that whatever the best kids we have on the team, whatever their best event is, kind of everybody gets better at that. You know, it's just the kind of the way it is. It's human nature, I think. So our morning practices are in general an hour of general aerobic work. Nothing too hard. We do a Chuck Batchelor calls them Baylor 25s. We do a variable speed set literally every single practice. It's the same. Usually, it's the same exact set, and that kind of sets us up for what we're going to do after that.
So the last activation of the anaerobic system through kind of fartlek stuff, like just activation of anaerobic system with some speed play fartlek type stuff.
Yes. And the other big thing in my mind is, well, there's two components. One, it helps my coaching eye because it's so repetitive and so frequent. I can tell, all right, they're looking good today, or whoa, you know, they're swimming in mud. Maybe we need to tone it down a little bit. I use it from that standpoint. And the other standpoint is this, you know, you got to understand the job you're hired to do. I tell that to coaches all the time. Sometimes I think coaches whiff on that and don't quite understand the job they're hired to do. And whereas I'm super proud of our club success, my employer is much more proud of our high school success. And, you know, you go to a high school championship meet, there's only 3 events that are longer than 100. So everybody on the team needs to have a speed component. Like our boys team this year, I can think of only maybe like 2 kids on the whole team who are better at 100 than they would be of a 200. I tell our strength coach all the time, like, man, if we race college events, we would be a really, you know, we're a real good high school team now, our boys. We'd be really good if we were racing a college dual meet format, so to speak. So anyway, we do that little speed play every day, and then we go into power work. And I really wanted to get back to being known as a team that was going to beat everybody off the walls. I really wanted to get back to being dominant at that 5th stroke, the underwater component. So one day I literally, like a lot of times I don't even write practices now. I know what we're going to do. I've got the basic plan. I watch that first component and see if that still fits. But I sat down for literally every kid on the team. One day I just locked myself in my office, put up the do not disturb sign, and I went through morning practice. Once we got clearance to be able to run our practices so that we could use our power towers, etc. From a COVID standpoint, you know, the lane limitations were lifted, and we could really run it like the way I'd like to. I mapped out the entire year of, okay, here's what we're doing today, which leads into the next, which leads into the next, and how to manage it so that every single kid could get exposed to it, which is tricky, but we were able to pull it off. So like this morning would be a very typical situation. Monday is we work on fly. Wednesday we work on backstroke. Thursday or Friday we work on breaststroke. And everybody's 200 IM got a whole lot better. I really wish we could have had more kids have the opportunity to race 400 IMs because they'd have been darn good too. But we try and do that. So I set that whole thing up working, knowing that 5th stroke is such a critical part of what we do. And I just gave the kids a lecture the other day on, I'm amazed when I go to meets that long course meets, that even people who I know are really good underwater, I don't think use it as much as they do in the short pool. I don't think they weaponize it. That's the word I like to use. So I've been talking to them a lot about, continuing to weaponize, even though the course is now a long course that we're training, to keep on weaponizing and maximizing the distance. I'm always like, they give you 15 meters. Why are you only using 10 if you're good at it? I try and keep things simple a lot of times. But
can you give us an example of a good underwater set?
So what we did, so I ripped this off of, I saw a lecture by Braden Howell at NC State. And I ripped this progression off from him, and we got a lot better, so we just kept doing it. We'll go, like last week, it was 8 reps at 7 kicks with 1. We've got kind of different levels on our bucket. At level 1, on a certain amount of rest, it was 15 seconds rest. Next, this week, it was, we did 12 repetitions at 9 kicks at that same level. Again, timing them, making sure that their kick, I spent a lot of time focusing on kick tempo. Their kick tempos were at race speed. And we just progressed it 3 times a week. We put the kick out sticks out all the time, so you kind of have to kick out underneath them.
PVC piping with a little noodle on the end.
Yeah,
you can
correct.
essentially clip onto the lane line, and it acts as a physical barrier for the kids to be able to go a certain length of underwater past it, just to kind of set the visual for those of you listening. I love them. I mean, they're great. We used to do a rope in the middle, but the little barriers are much simpler, and you can use them a little more efficiently.
Yeah. So it's a simple progression, and eventually it kicks in. There'll be some swimming at the end of it that kicks in. We usually do most of our underwater work with fins. I like the little arena fins.
And resistance, so you'll put fins and the buckets?
Correct. And you can really start to measure. I commented to one kid this morning, I'm like, look how much farther you're getting out of the same kicks, same amount of kicks, Look how much farther, look how much faster. I like stuff that's measurable, that I can show them, hey, you just got faster, congratulations. So that's one of the things that we do. The biggest thing, so a lot of people have asked how we've gotten good at it. And I've just said, you just got to commit to it and do it. And get out of the mindset of, well, we got to get 5,000 in this practice. Well, no, you don't. You got to get better. That's the biggest thing. That's what we're trying to do here. And some practices that may take 5,000, some that may take 10, some it may take 2. But you got it. But the goal is to get better. And I think that's something that a lot of club coaches whiff on. They mess with it for a little bit and then get bored. And I say, it takes a while to weaponize it. Anybody can do it off that first ball. Who wins off the last ball? That's what I'm looking for.
Why do you think they get away from it? I mean, just because it does take time away from possibly more yardage?
A lot of times. And a lot of times they just can't really do it ideally due to lane constraints, and you gotta meet your budget, so you gotta have a certain amount of kids in the pool and that kind of stuff. And we're fortunate. We've been Silver Club for a while now, so I've always gone with a thought process of when we apply for grant money, I go with the thought process of trying to put 2 years of it towards performance, and then 1 towards club development. Like we've thrown a lot of money at our swimming lesson program, and it's really served us well doing that. But so a lot of clubs don't have the money to buy 5 or 6 power towers. That's an assistant coach's salary for a year. I mean, a lot of places. So I think it's much more that, which causes the cycle to go where they never see that benefit of one of their kids at a junior nationals, pushing off the last wall and blowing everybody away, and they're heat 2 of 33, but look at them now, they're in finals. That gets your attention as a coach, right? That, wow, that really worked well. We need to do that more. I think those are all factors to it. And it's hard. There's years I've gotten away from it. Sometimes there's a new shiny toy out there that my wife is convinced I have adult ADD, so I squirrel a lot of times on, ooh, what's that? Let's try that.
But doesn't that keep you somewhat fresh? Doesn't that keep you growth-minded? For somebody who has been the head coach, it's sometimes a lonely gig. And when you've been there for 15 years, I mean, it'd be really easy to get complacent. You got everything you need there. You've proven how to do it over and over again. And at some point, you do want to stop, taking everything in. At least I learned this as a young coach and trying to do everything. Same, guilty of adult ADD, where I want to try this and I want to do it this way. And this makes sense. So I get really excited about it here.
Right.
But at a certain point, you want to take everything that and just, trust yourself and move forward. Don't you give yourself a little credit for because I remember you were showing me kettlebells 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when people were just barely starting to use them. And now I've seen, in the 12 years since then, I've seen it used in progressions for streamlines and cool places. Yeah. I know that you've also explored other areas. I guess what's the most recent, I could get distracted with this question. What's the most recent thing that you've been excited in the last year to kind of go try and do?
It's almost like every fad, what is old is new, right?
Yeah.
That's happened to me a lot. So I got this progression for 500 swimmers. That's how it started. And now just kind of extrapolating that out for 200s of stroke, for even hundreds, etc. I laugh about the whole thing. You do a lot of the usurp stuff, right? Don't you do that?
USRPT, yeah, race pace for sure. I definitely have a big background in. For a while, we were doing exclusive with a progressive, but not like exclusive like Rushall would want you to do exclusive, but definitely low yardage, high intensity, trying to use that as the metric that we were kind of tracing was, amount of yardage at 100 pace, amount of yardage pace.
Correct.
I've probably come to a place where we do a lot more supportive work because I've found that you can do a lot more of that specific work when you do more supportive work. But anyway, yes, I definitely enjoy and believe that adaptation that happens at race pace and practice is the one that I want to maximize.
And it works, it's the same dog, different fleas in my mind, what I'm doing with what I do. And I kind of started out with this thing where we do just a bunch of 75s. Like the kids, especially that middle distance 200-y, 500-y group, they know on a Monday they're doing 75s. I mean, they just know it. So I've been trying to play with that and extrapolate that out and seeing the impact of it on different strokes. One of the things I'm really into now, our breaststroke got a ton better this year because I laughed and I was like, wow, I have had some really good breaststroke groups. This group is not one of them. But if we're going to be good at the IM, we got to get better at it. There's nobody there's literally nobody in our group where I look down the pool and be like, God, look at that gorgeous breaststroke kick, right? So I've really gone with the notion of, we do a ton and always have of breaststroke pull with a dolphin kick with a pretty rapid tempo. And I had a guy, Sam McHugh, back in the day, who was a good swimmer and, finaled at nationals and stuff as a high schooler. And it got, his real weakness, though, was his breaststroke. He's a tremendous butterflyer. So I started to play with, what if we made it more like butterfly, right? And so now our IMers, their breaststroke is perilously close to becoming a strength. And it's because I keep on telling them, we're going to become front-wheel drive cars. Okay, we're no more rear-wheel drive, i.e. the breaststroke kick. We're going to do a lot of our work from the front part, from the pull, and from the body motion of it, and just do a little thing in the back that makes you still legal. And that's really something that we've worked on a lot this year. When I first try and teach it to new kids, sometimes they look at me like I got four heads. They're like, what are you talking about?
Do you teach it really wide? Is that how you get more out of those arms, is by forcing them? Because I've definitely changed my thoughts of a narrow out front breaststroke to everybody seems to agree that this wider breaststroke.
Yeah, I'm like, quit swimming breaststroke like this. Okay, I'm always like, pull from your fingertips more. Get more from your fingertips, more from your fingertips. And it goes with the power work that we do, because I'm always talking about try and make your body a whip. Try and make your body a whip. And to get them to use their whole body to swim, not just their arms and legs. That's something that we've really, turned up the volume on.
75's race pace for breaststrokers too?
Oh, yeah.
It's tough the race pace is tough with breaststrokers, because like on a 75 race pace, you could put them on 105, 1 a minute for some kids, depending on the level, but breaststrokers get screwed because they get no rest in those 75 scenarios.
Well, I would move the breaststrokers. They're in their own land, as I refer to it. We do a lot of it with fins. Again, it's like I use fins a lot. I'd say 70% of our long course training is done with fins. The better freestylers, like today, they're going to try and replicate a kind of if we were doing the colors, a red threshold set. And I'm having them use that's why I like the arena fins, because they're short, they're a little heavier. So you got to work them or you're screwed. You have no chance, right? You've got to work the kick. And I try and crank the intervals perilously close to what we would do yards. Now, one of my big philosophies is, I like to talk to the kids in between reps. So I don't do a ton of short rest stuff. I'd rather give you more rest than have you go fast. Again, it's the ADD. I can't stand watching slow swimming. I get bored with that very easy. Unless that's the point. Unless the point is just take a nice long jog. Then I'm fine with it. But if we're trying to go, let's go. And I don't mind giving them a good bit of rest and talking to them. Like a couple summers ago, Trey Freeman finaled in the 200, 400, 800 nationals as a high schooler. And people, of course, was asking me, well, how much yardage does he do in a week, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I know what chain energy system we're touching each day. And a lot of those days, I could tell you how many times he, pushed 26.2 for a 50 or 56.6 for 100. Now, those I count. A lot of the other times, I don't really worry about the other yardage as long as his stroke is staying on point.
So tracking what he's doing at that top end gear or at least that he's hitting that? I guess, do you track any of the metrics? Is there anything in there that you're keeping track of throughout your season? Because you've said, you don't necessarily need to day-to-day write sets. You obviously know what you want to touch on, what energy groups. Is there a 3-day cycle for those energy groups? Is there 3 different types of things, or do you hit all of those within each practice?
Yeah. So, sorry, I got a little out in the weeds there. Back to your original question.
Okay.
Yes. So Monday afternoons is usually, if you're using colors, it's reddish. It's threshold work on Monday afternoon. That's my view of what threshold work is. Tuesday afternoon is usually either speed play or just pure speed. Wednesday afternoon is the biggest yardage day of the week, but if you've done the other days right, I think it's the easiest. A lot of times there aren't intervals. Stuff is on, 3 1200s on a minute rest, do 100 of this, 100 of that, blah, blah, blah. Keep your heart rate in this zone. Make sure you're holding your line off the wall, that kind of swimming. Thursday afternoon is usually shorter thresholdy kind of stuff. And say if you're a freestyler and a butterfly, or a freestyler and a backstroker, there'd be more backstroke focus on that day, more of your prime stroke. Friday afternoon is speed and toys, because it's Friday, right? People want to go fast on Friday. Why not? And then Saturday is hard. Saturday's hard. Whatever that means, where we are in the season. Back to coaching your own child. There's a time, it was not last summer when Sam first moved up into my group, that we were doing 6100s long course, and that was a huge step up in tax bracket for him compared to what he had been doing to that point in his swimming. And in my mind, I laughed and I was like, this is probably literally the hardest thing he's ever done in his life. And about 32 or so, I can tell he's kind of crying in his goggles, right? And I'm like, oh, and the parent, in me, it's tugging at the heartstrings. The coach in me finds it pretty funny. I'm like, come on, boy, get through this, and you're good, because this will serve you well later on in the summer. And sure enough, that summer was the summer where he kind of had his big breakthrough and really took off and drank the Kool-Aid and got all into it. So, so that would be a basic week.
And as far as metrics, are you tracking that volume? You're not tracking the volume per week, you said, because when people would ask you about Sam, you didn't really know, but you're tracking their ability to hit that top speed when he hit a 26.2 or was going those fast hundreds. Is that something that is that one of the coach's eye pieces that tells you where they're at and what they need?
Yeah, and I pay a lot of attention to how hard it is for them to do it.
Yeah.
I like, kind of in my mind, like if you're teaching somebody the 500 and you want them to break 420, they got to be out in 49 easy. Plenty of people can go out 49 hard, and the wheels come off the bus about that 350 mark. So I spend a lot of time. I'll write little notes on, like, I won't just say write down notes or make notes on what the times were. It was how easy was it, stroke count. I put a lot of I asked the question, well, why can't a 400-meter freestyler swim with more of a sprinter stroke if the sprinters go faster? Yeah, it's going to be hard, and not everybody's going to be able to do it. But those who can, wow, it ought to be something special. So, like with Trey Freeman, on his key sets of the week, I'd do an S or an NS. An S meant that there was splash coming off his shoulders as he was, driving forward. Because I always talk to him and all the kids about swimming in a little tube. Because the best sprinters in the world, they're not way out here. They're in a little tube. And they're traveling the fastest out of all of us. So I try and get him in a little tube. And NS would mean no splash. And that was always really good. That means shoulder caps were clear and he was in that little tube. The way I envisioned him racing, not just with the time, but how it would look, it was replicating that. So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I could dive in. I mean, I don't want to take too much more of your time, so we could do some rapid fire and kind of close this out. But do you have a little bit more time?
I got all day.
Okay. I got all day. When you say swim in a tube, you are trying to keep them long. So, okay, here's what I'm trying to get at. This is something that I've had a little pet peeve with lately. And it started on my own, but then Russell Mark really put some fuel on my fire when he talked about rotation and the need to make sure that you're not over-rotating. Because this was my pet peeve, is that when you rotate too far, the shoulder and the elbow that you're trying to get up on top of the water are way down here. So teaching kids, to use their body, but use it as more of a pivot is something that I'm trying to do. But I also completely agree. I call it the cylinder O speed, because if they can round out those corners,
I'm totally ripping that off. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, the cylinder O speed. So it's yours now. But can you kind of talk a little bit more about it, I guess, and what you're trying to get from that long, skinny line?
If I ever tell somebody that they look tall in the water, that's really good. Ideally, that's what I want you to look like. I talk in terms like I talk about, don't make your laps longer. Try and make your laps shorter. You'll be able to get done them sooner. And isn't that what, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here? I just know in my mind, the best people that I've coached, there's been such little frontal resistance. So, different body types achieve that different ways. But if we can get you, if we can get you in that narrow line as little as possible, as much as possible in that narrow line, having you wiggle outside of it, causing resistance as little as possible, you're going to swim faster, and it's going to be I'm a big easy speed guy. Again, can you do the time easy as opposed to, killing yourself? So that's what I really want to try and emphasize with them, especially in the long pool, because they're just swimming so much more. We do a drill called touch attack a lot, which is a touch in the front, touch back here, and then that really trying to launch that forward with that frontal clearance. We do that a lot with fins on. It's kind of one of those things where we started in the beginning of practice with the fins on a lot to kind of set it up. And ideally, it carries over into the main part of the practice. And especially long course, a lot of times our main set of the session is with fins on. Because again, if you don't use your legs, you don't make the set.
Yeah, and even though you're wearing the fins, it's not like those fins are doing the work. Like you talk about, those heavy shoulder arena fins are really forcing those legs to still activate and use those muscles. So tons of good stuff. I hope that all the young coaches out there appreciate, and even the older coaches should appreciate all the info that you kind of helped share with us today. So Dan, I really appreciate your time. I hope we can catch up again soon, because it's always a pleasure and I always learn so much. So thank you so much, Dan.
Happy to do it. This was great. Anytime.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.